Dramily.com, unlimited drama series.
The heavy bag swayed like a drunk after I'd landed my final combination. Sweat dripped from my forehead onto the cracked concrete floor of Vic's gym, mixing with decades of other men's frustrations. My phone buzzed against the bench where I'd left it next to my water bottle. Heading to Mom's for a few days. Need some space to think. Don't wait up. Clara. I stared at the screen, wiping my hands on a towel that had seen better decades. Clara's mother lived in Vermont, a good 3-hour drive from our place here in Millbrook. Made sense she'd want to run to Mommy when things got tense between us. What didn't make sense was the little location indicator at the bottom of her message. Marriott Downtown, room 167. I blinked hard, thinking maybe the sweat had gotten in my eyes. Nope. Still there. Clara was supposedly at her mother's house, but her phone was pinging from the nicest hotel in our city. Well, I muttered, screenshotting the message before the location could disappear. Say hi to your mom for me, honey. Tell her the Marriott has really improved since she moved there. Vic wandered over, his weathered face creased with concern. At 58, he'd seen enough broken marriages to recognize the signs. Bad news from the missus? You could say that. I showed him the screenshot. Apparently, Clara's mother has upgraded to a hotel suite. Vic whistled low. That's some expensive family therapy? Yeah, and I bet I know who's helping her work through her issues. I grabbed my gym bag and headed for the door. I need to make a phone call. The private investigator's name was Maya Reeves, and she came recommended by my lawyer friend Renee. Maya had a reputation for being thorough, discreet, and expensive. Right now, I only cared about the first two qualities. I need surveillance on my wife, I told her over the phone as I sat in my truck outside the gym. Tonight, Marriott Downtown, room 167. Standard adultery package runs $500 for tonight. Another $1,000 if you want photos and a full report, Maya said without missing a beat. Cash up front. Deal. How fast can you get there? I'm already in the lobby. I had to admire her efficiency. By morning, my phone contained a dozen photos that told the whole story. Clara arriving at 7:30 p.m. in the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. Eric Hartwell, her law firm partner, showing up 20 minutes later with an overnight bag and a bottle of champagne. The two of them leaving together the next morning, Eric's hand on the small of Clara's back as they walked to his silver Porsche. Eric Hartwell, 42 years old, senior partner at Morrison, Hartwell & Associates, married to Helen for 15 years with 2 kids. The same Eric who'd been to our house for dinner parties, who'd shaken my hand and complimented Claire on her lucky catch when she married a salt-of-the-earth guy like me. I forwarded the photos to Renee along with a simple message. File the papers, adultery clause, take everything. Then, I sent Clara a text. Hope you and your mom had a nice chat at the Marriott. Room service must have improved since Eric started staying there too. I blocked her number before she could respond. 3 days later, Maya called with an update. Your wife and her boyfriend have established a pattern. Same room every Tuesday and Friday night. They think they're being clever, but hotel staff remember faces. Perfect. I need you to do something special for me. I'm listening. Next Friday, I want you to coordinate with a process server. I want Clara served with divorce papers while she's in that room, with Eric there. Make it as public as possible without breaking any laws. Maya's laugh was sharp. You're a vindictive bastard, Nathan Cross. I like that in a client. Friday evening, I sat at Murphy's bar across from the Marriott, nursing a beer and watching the hotel entrance through the window. At 7:45, Clara's BMW pulled into the valet station. She stepped out wearing a red dress I'd never seen before, probably bought with our joint credit card for her special occasions. Eric arrived 10 minutes later, just like clockwork. At 8:30, Maya texted me. Package delivered. You should see the lobby in about 3 minutes. I didn't have to wait that long. The hotel's front doors burst open and Clara stumbled out, still wearing a white hotel bathrobe, her face flushed with humiliation and rage. Eric followed 30 seconds later, his shirt buttoned wrong and his hair disheveled, carrying his shoes in one hand and his dignity in the other. The process server, a professional woman in her 30s, stood calmly in the lobby, watching them through the glass doors. She raised her hand in a small wave when she saw me looking. Clara spotted my truck in the bar's parking lot and marched across the street, her heels clicking angrily on the asphalt. I rolled down my window as she approached. "You bastard," she screamed. "How dare you embarrass me like that?" "Embarrass you?" I kept my voice level, almost conversational. "Honey, I didn't embarrass you. You embarrassed yourself. I just made sure it had an audience. This is harassment. I'll have you arrested." "For what? Serving you legal papers?" "That's called due process, Clara. You should know that, being a lawyer and all." Eric had retreated to his Porsche and was trying to disappear into the leather seats. I called out to him through the window. "Hey, Eric, nice bathrobe. Really brings out your eyes." Claire's face went from red to purple. "You can't do this to me." "Actually, I can, and I did. And I'm just getting started." I put the truck in drive. "Oh, and Clara, you might want to check with Eric's wife, Helen. I sent her the same photos I sent my lawyer. I'm sure she'll want to discuss them with both of you." I drove away, leaving Clara standing in the parking lot in her hotel bathrobe, finally understanding that her carefully controlled world was about to collapse around her. The next week brought a symphony of consequences. Helen Hartwell filed for divorce on Monday, taking the kids to her sister's house and freezing Eric's access to their joint accounts. By Wednesday, the story had spread through Millbrook's legal community like wildfire. Clara was placed on administrative leave pending an ethics review. I moved my stuff out of our house and into the apartment above Vic's gym. It wasn't much, a studio with a kitchenette and a view of the alley, but it was mine. Clara's voicemails filled up my blocked call folder, progressing from tearful apologies to furious threats in record time. "Nathan, please, we need to talk," started the first one. By message number 6, she was screaming, "You vindictive piece of trash. I'll destroy you in court." I played them for Vic while we worked the heavy bags. She went from, "Please forgive me," to, "I'll ruin you," in less than 12 hours, I told him. That's got to be some kind of record. "What's your next move?" Vic asked, holding the bag steady while I worked my combinations. "I'm going to remind Eric that actions have consequences." I found Eric's Porsche in the parking garage beneath his law firm Thursday afternoon. He was just getting out, looking haggard and defeated, when I stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. "Eric, good to see you, buddy. How's married life treating you these days?" He froze like a deer in headlights. "Nathan, look, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you've been screwing my wife in hotel rooms? How you shook my hand at dinner parties while planning to destroy my marriage? Please, enlighten me." Eric backed against his car, his expensive suit wrinkled and his usual confidence nowhere to be found. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Clara and I, You just what? Accidentally fell into bed together? Accidentally booked the same hotel room? Accidentally destroyed 2 marriages?" I stepped closer, close enough that he could smell the sawdust and sweat from the gym on my clothes. Eric might have had money and education, but I had 40 pounds of muscle on him and 20 years of boxing training. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "No, you're not, but you will be." I pulled out my keys and dragged them along the side of his Porsche, carving "Home Wrecker" into the silver paint. Eric watched in horror as I destroyed his $60,000 car. "You can't do that. That's vandalism." "Prove it." I tossed a pair of Clara's torn panties onto his dashboard, a little souvenir Maya had recovered from their hotel room trash. "Tell the cops you want to file a report. I'm sure they'd love to hear the whole story." Eric stared at the ruined paint job and said nothing. "Smart choice. Oh, and Eric, if I see you anywhere near my wife again, I'll do a lot worse than scratch your car." I walked away, leaving him standing next to his vandalized Porsche with a pair of my wife's underwear as evidence of his shame. 2 days later, I received the first anonymous text. "Back off or you'll regret it." I showed it to Maya when she stopped by the gym with her final report. "Any idea?" Who might have sent this? She examined the number on my phone. Burner phone, bought with cash. Could be anyone. Your wife, her boyfriend, Maybe one of their friends trying to help, or someone else entirely. You think there's another player in this game? I'd been wondering the same thing. Clara wasn't smart enough to orchestrate the kind of careful manipulation that had led to her affair. She was impulsive, emotional, reactive. Someone else had been pulling the strings. Keep digging, I told Maya. Follow the money, check phone records, see who Clara's been talking to besides Eric. That evening, Clara's best friend Julie knocked on my apartment door. Julie Martinez had been Clara's maid of honor at our wedding, her confidant, her partner in crime for girls' nights and shopping trips. She was also one of the few people who knew about my temper and how far I was willing to go when pushed. Nathan, can we talk? She looked nervous, fidgeting with her purse strap. Sure, Julie, come on up. She followed me upstairs to the apartment, her heels echoing in the narrow stairwell. This is cozy, she said, looking around the small space. It's temporary. What can I do for you? It's about Clara. She's falling apart, Nathan. She's drinking too much, not sleeping, barely eating. I'm worried about her. She should have thought about that before she started screwing Eric. Julie winced. I know she made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store. What Clara did was a choice. A series of choices, actually. All of them designed to humiliate me and destroy our marriage. She never meant to hurt you. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Really? Then what was the plan, Julie? She was going to keep screwing Eric indefinitely, and I was just supposed to never find out? Julie sat down on my couch, wrapping her arms around herself. She was going to leave you. After the Henderson case settled and she got her bonus, she was going to file for divorce and move in with Eric. How do you know that? Because she told me. She's been planning this for months, Nathan. The hotel room, the secret meetings, all of it. She thought she was being so clever. Something in Julie's voice didn't ring true. She was telling me things Clara would never have shared, even with her best friend. Clara was too paranoid, too controlling to reveal her plans to anyone. Why are you really here, Julie? She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. Because I feel responsible. I'm the one who introduced her to Eric at that legal conference last year. If I hadn't pushed her to network more, to be more aggressive about her career, none of this would have happened. That's not your fault, isn't it? I kept telling her she deserved better, that she was settling for less than she was worth. I planted the seeds, Nathan. I made her think you weren't good enough for her. Julie stayed for another hour, sharing details about Clara's affair that only someone very close to the situation could have known. She told me about Eric's apartment, about their weekend trips, about Clara's plans to take half of everything in the divorce. After she left, I sat in the dark, thinking about our conversation. Julie had given me valuable intelligence, but something about her visit felt wrong. She'd been too eager to share information, too willing to betray Clara's confidences. I made a mental note to have Maya look into Julie's background. Maya's investigation into Julie revealed some interesting connections. Julie worked as a marketing coordinator for a company that did business with Eric's law firm. She'd been at the legal conference where Clara and Eric first met, and she'd been the one to suggest they have drinks together. It gets better, Maya told me over coffee at a diner downtown. Julie's been texting with Eric regularly for the past 6 months. Not romantic texts, but coordination. Meeting times, hotel reservations, even alibis for when Clara needed to explain her whereabouts. She's been facilitating the affair. More than that, she's been orchestrating it. Look at this. Maya showed me printouts of text messages between Julie and Eric. Meet at the usual place. Clara will be free Friday after 7. Tell her you're working late on the Morrison case. Why would she do this? What does she get out of destroying Clara's marriage? That's what I'm still working on. But Nathan, there's something else. Julie's been asking questions about you, your finances, your work schedule, your friends. She's been gathering intelligence. For what? I don't know yet. But whatever she's planning, it's bigger than just helping Clara cheat. That night, Vic was attacked outside the gym. 3 men in ski masks jumped him as he was locking up, beating him with baseball bats before fleeing in a dark sedan. Vic spent the night in the hospital with a concussion and 2 broken ribs. Did you see their faces? I asked him the next morning. No, but I heard one of them talking. He said, tell your friend to back off, or next time it'll be worse. This is about me. Yeah, I figured. What did you do to piss off people with baseball bats? I embarrassed some very important people, and apparently, they don't like it. I called Maya from the hospital parking lot. Julie's moved beyond coordination. She's escalating to violence. You sure it's her? Who else knows about my connection to Vic? Who else would see him as a pressure point to use against me? What's your play? I'm going to give Julie exactly what she wants. I'm going to back off, apologize to Clara, and try to reconcile. You're going to what? It's a trap, Maya. Julie's been pulling strings this whole time, but I don't know why. The only way to find out is to let her think she's won. I called Clara from a number she wouldn't recognize and asked her to meet me at Murphy's bar. She arrived 20 minutes later, looking haggard and desperate. The confident, polished lawyer I'd married had been replaced by a woman who looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. Nathan, thank God you called. I've been trying to reach you. I know. I got your message.
She just gave me a massage! That's it!
Remember, I won't be a fool!
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
She slid into the booth across from me, her hands shaking as she reached for her wine glass. I made a terrible mistake. Eric and I, it's over. I told him I never want to see him again. Because Helen took him for everything in the divorce? Claire's face flushed. Because I realized what I was throwing away. You, our marriage, our life together. I was stupid and selfish, and I'm sorry. Julie came to see me. She did? What did she say? That you've been planning to leave me for months. That the affair wasn't a mistake, it was a strategy. Clara's eyes widened. She told you that? She told me a lot of things. About Eric's apartment, about your weekend trips, about your plans to take half of everything in the divorce. Nathan, I never told Julie any of that. Some of it isn't even true. So she was lying? She was embellishing, making it sound worse than it was. I leaned back in the booth, studying Clara's face. She was telling the truth, or at least part of it. Julie had been feeding me information, but not all of it was accurate. Why would she do that? I don't know. Maybe she thought you deserved to know everything, even things that weren't exactly true. Or maybe she wanted to make sure I stayed angry enough to keep going after you. Clara's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. What do you mean? Think about it, Clara. Who introduced you to Eric? Who encouraged you to pursue your career more aggressively? Who was always telling you that you deserved better than what you had? Julie, but who knew about your affair from the beginning? Who helped you coordinate meetings and alibis? Who had access to both your schedule and Eric's? Clara set down her glass with shaking hands. You think Julie wanted this to happen? I think Julie orchestrated this whole thing. The question is why? We talked for another hour, comparing notes about Julie's behavior over the past year. The pattern was clear once we started looking for it. Julie had been manipulating both of us, pushing Clara toward the affair, while simultaneously feeding me information to ensure maximum damage when it was discovered. What do we do? Clara asked. We find out what she really wants. The answer came from an unexpected source. Helen Hartwell called me the next morning with information about her divorce proceedings. I thought you should know, she said. Eric's been talking to his lawyer about your wife's friend Julie. Apparently, she's been blackmailing him. Blackmailing him how? Photos, recordings, evidence of the affair. She's been demanding money to keep quiet about certain details that could hurt him in our divorce. What kind of details? The affair started earlier than anyone knew. Julie has evidence that Eric was cheating on me with Clara for almost a year before you found out. She also has recordings of Eric talking about hiding assets from me. The pieces started falling into place. Julie hadn't been helping Clara have an affair. She'd been documenting it, creating evidence, building a case, gathering ammunition for blackmail. Why are you telling me this? I asked Helen. Because Julie approached me yesterday. She wants to sell me the evidence for $50,000. She said it would guarantee I get everything in the divorce. What did you tell her? I told her I'd think about it, but Nathan, there's something else. She mentioned that she has similar evidence about you. What kind of evidence? She wouldn't say, but she implied that if you didn't stop causing problems for Clara and Eric, she might share it with your employer. I thanked Helen and hung up, my mind racing. Julie had been playing a longer game than any of us had realized. She wasn't just facilitating Clara's affair, she was profiting from it. I called Maya and asked her to dig deeper into Julie's background, particularly her finances. What she found was illuminating. Julie Martinez wasn't just a marketing coordinator. She was a freelance private investigator, specializing in matrimonial cases. She'd been working divorce cases for 3 years, usually hired by suspicious spouses to gather evidence of infidelity. But here's the interesting part, Maya told me. She's never been hired by anyone to investigate Clara or Eric. She's been working this case on her own initiative, building evidence to sell to the highest bidder. Exactly. She's got photos, recordings, financial records, everything she needs to destroy both marriages and profit from the wreckage. What evidence does she have on me? Maya hesitated. Nathan, she's been surveilling you for months. She knows about your boxing matches, your gambling, your off-the-books work for Vic's friends. None of it was illegal, but it could be embarrassing if it came out at the wrong time. Julie had been building leverage against everyone involved, creating a situation where she could control the outcome and profit from the chaos. She's been playing us all. Yeah, and she's good at it. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I thought about Vic in the hospital, about Claire's destroyed career, about Eric's ruined marriage, about all the collateral damage from Julie's manipulation. I'm going to give her exactly what she deserves. I arranged to meet Julie at a storage unit facility outside town, telling her I had evidence that could help Claire in the divorce proceedings. She arrived at sunset, driving her silver Honda and looking nervous. "This is very cloak and dagger," she said as I led her to the storage unit. "Privacy is important when you're dealing with sensitive information." Inside the unit, I had set up a table with chairs and a laptop computer. "Have a seat, Julie. We need to talk." She sat down, her purse clutched tightly in her lap. "What kind of evidence do you have?" Instead of answering, I opened the laptop and played a recording. Julie's voice filled the small space. "Meet at the usual place. Clara will be free Friday after 7. Her face went white. "Where did you get that?" "The same place I got these." I showed her printouts of her text messages with Eric, her financial records showing payments from multiple divorce cases, and surveillance photos of her meeting with Helen Hartwell. "You've been busy, Julie, facilitating affairs, documenting evidence, selling information to the highest bidder. It's quite an operation you've got running." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really?" "Because I've got Helen Hartwell on speed dial, and she's very interested in talking to the police about your blackmail attempt." Julie's composure cracked. "You don't understand. This isn't what it looks like." "Then explain it to me." She took a shaky breath. "Clara was my friend, but she was also destroying herself. She was miserable in her marriage, going through the motions, wasting her potential. I thought if she had an affair, it would force her to make a choice. So you introduced her to Eric." "I introduced them, yes. But I didn't force them to sleep together." "No, but you facilitated it. You coordinated their meetings, provided alibis, made it easy for them to betray their spouses." "I was trying to help her." "By documenting everything, by recording their conversations, by building a blackmail portfolio." Julie's shoulders sagged in defeat. "I needed the money, Nathan. My mother's medical bills, my student loans. I was drowning in debt. When I realized what was happening between Claire and Eric, I saw an opportunity. An opportunity to profit from destroying people's lives. I never meant for it to go this far. I thought Clara would leave you quietly, Eric would leave Helen, and everyone would move on. I didn't expect you to fight back so hard." "So, you had Vic beaten up?" "That wasn't me. And I hired some guys to scare you, to make you back off, but they went too far." I leaned across the table, my voice dropping to a whisper. "You hired thugs to intimidate me because I was interfering with your blackmail scheme. I was trying to protect everyone. If you had just let Clara go quietly, none of this would have happened. If you hadn't manipulated her into having an affair, none of this would have happened." Julie started crying, mascara running down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Nathan. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. But they did get hurt. Clara's career is destroyed. Eric's marriage is over. Vic is in the hospital. And you've been profiting from all of it. What do you want from me?" I closed the laptop and stood up. "I want you to disappear, Julie. Leave town, delete your files, and never contact any of us again. And if I don't, then I turn everything over to the police. Blackmail, extortion, conspiracy, assault. You'll be looking at serious prison time." Julie wiped her eyes and nodded. "I'll go. Tonight." "Good choice. She stood to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, Nathan, Clara really did love you. The affair was my idea, but her feelings for you were real. That makes it worse, not better. After Julie left, I sat alone in the storage unit, thinking about the wreckage of the past few months. 3 marriages destroyed, careers ruined, friendships shattered, all because one woman had decided to play God with other people's lives. But I wasn't done yet. The Millbrook Summer Festival was the biggest event of the year, drawing thousands of people to the downtown square for food, music, and community celebration. Local businesses sponsored booths, politicians made speeches, and everyone who was anyone in town made an appearance. I had arranged for the festival organizers to let me make a special announcement from the main stage, supposedly to thank the community for their support during my difficult time. What they didn't know was that I had prepared a very different kind of speech. Clara arrived at the festival with her mother, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy despite her professional disgrace. Eric was there too, looking haggard and desperate, probably hoping to network his way into a new job. Helen Hartwell had brought her children, determined to show the community that she was moving on with her life. At 3 o'clock, I took the stage in front of nearly 2,000 people. "Good afternoon, Millbrook," I said into the microphone, my voice carrying across the crowded square. "I want to thank you all for your support over the past few months. As many of you know, I've been going through a difficult divorce." The crowd quieted, sensing that something unusual was about to happen. What you might not know is the full story of how my marriage ended. You see, my wife Clara didn't just have an affair. She was manipulated into having one by someone we both trusted. I spotted Clara in the crowd, her face pale with shock. Eric was trying to push through the crowd toward the exit, but there were too many people in his way. Julie Martinez, who many of you know as Clara's best friend, has been operating a blackmail scheme targeting married couples in our community. She manipulates wives into having affairs, documents the evidence, and then sells that information to the highest bidder. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. I held up my hand for quiet. I have recordings, photographs, and financial records proving that Julie has been profiting from the destruction of marriages. She's the one who introduced my wife to her affair partner. She's the one who coordinated their meetings. And she's the one who tried to blackmail multiple people when her scheme started falling apart. Helen Hartwell was staring at me from across the square, her mouth open in shock. But Julie isn't the only one responsible for what happened. My wife Clara chose to betray our marriage vows. Eric Hartwell chose to betray his wife and children. They're both adults who made their own decisions. Eric had given up trying to escape and was now standing frozen in the crowd, every eye in the square focused on him. So, I want to make something very clear to everyone here today. Actions have consequences. When you choose to lie, cheat, and manipulate, you don't get to control how those consequences play out. I pulled out my phone and held it up to the microphone. "Clara, I know you're here somewhere. This is for you." I played a recording of Clara's voice. "Eric makes me feel alive in a way Nathan never could. I can't wait to get rid of him and start my real life." The crowd gasped. Clara pushed through the people around her and ran toward the parking area, her mother following behind. "And Eric, this one's for you." Another recording. "Helen's so boring. She has no idea what she's married to. When this is over, I'll take half of everything and she can have the kids." Eric's face went purple with rage and humiliation. He started pushing through the crowd toward the stage, but several men blocked his path. The truth is, folks, some people think they're smarter than everyone else. They think they can manipulate and deceive without consequences. They think regular people like you and me are too stupid to figure out what they're really doing. I gestured toward the crowd, my voice rising with passion. But we're not stupid. We're just decent. We believe in honesty, loyalty, and treating people with respect. And when someone violates those principles, we have every right to hold them accountable. Eric finally broke through the crowd and charged toward the stage. "You bastard," he screamed. "You can't do this to me." He tried to climb onto the platform, but I was ready for him. As he reached the top, I stepped aside and let his momentum carry him forward. He stumbled, tripped over a microphone cable, and fell face first into the crowd. The impact knocked over a table full of beer cups, soaking Eric's expensive suit and covering him in sticky liquid. He tried to get up, but slipped on the wet grass and fell again, this time landing in a puddle of mud. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause, as Eric struggled to his feet, his dignity as ruined as his clothes. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said into the microphone, "that's what happens when you try to climb higher than you deserve." Eric limped away from the festival, his shirt torn and his face red with humiliation. Clara had already fled, her social standing in Millbrook destroyed beyond repair. I handed the microphone back to the festival organizer and walked off the stage to thunderous applause. Vic was waiting for me at the bottom of the steps, his arm still in a sling from the attack. "That was beautiful, Nathan. Absolutely beautiful." "It's over now," I said, like finally over. As I walked through the crowd, people patted me on the back and shook my hand. These were my neighbors, my community, people who understood that sometimes justice requires public accountability. Claire's BMW was already gone from the parking lot. Eric's Porsche sat abandoned near the entrance, its windows covered in mud from his fall. Helen Hartwell approached me as I reached my truck. "Thank you," she said simply. "My children deserve to know the truth about their father. I'm sorry it had to happen this way." "No, you're not, and neither am I." I drove home to my apartment above the gym, finally feeling like the weight of the past few months had been lifted from my shoulders. Clara would never practice law in Millbrook again. Eric's reputation was destroyed beyond repair. Julie had fled town and would never dare to return. Justice had been served, publicly and completely.